Hey, real quick, before we get into that episode, do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. That way you don't miss out on any marketing nuggets. Enjoy the show.
Entrepreneurship is a game of leaning into the fear and your imposter syndrome and going, you know what, I am terrified of this and I'm gonna do it anyway, because if I don't, I'm always gonna wonder if I could have done it.
Hi, I'm Josh Owen. As the owner of a video marketing company in New Orleans, I've been on the quest to learn everything I can about marketing. Everyone has a different style, different strategy, and a different experience. Is there a wrong way to do it? A right way to do it? Let's find out together as we make marketing make sense. All right, welcome everybody to another fantastic episode of Make Marketing Make Sense. Today, I'm joined by the wonderful and fabulous and all great things, Casey Boshae. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and today's such a fascinating journey because we're going to be particularly talking about you as a founder of the Gentle Pit. And how you took that journey, because I know that's like an impetus for a lot of things that you do, but it's also just amazing to hear how you take a product that you have no idea about and really like make it into something. So excited to talk about that with you today.
Yeah, me too.
So let's dive right into it. How did you go from not knowing anything about this or about products in general to now having your own product that is out there thriving on the digital world?
Yeah. So I am a classic example of a self-taught entrepreneur, somebody who just had an idea for something that would not let go of me. It was almost a compulsion once I kind of found that intersection between what I was passionate about and the gap I saw in the market. And I just went to work. I pulled every thread I could, exploring how to get something made, and dove headfirst in, just learning everything that I could about developing products and entrepreneurship. And, it's not unlike other areas of life, artists, authors. I think when an idea gets a hold of you and really resonates, you can't help but not pursue it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, it didn't intimidate you at all, not being able to say like, oh, I know nothing about this and I'm just going to do it, and, making that business a business.
Hugely intimidating. Yeah, but, I think entrepreneurship is a game of leaning into the fear and your imposter syndrome and going, you know what, I am terrified of this and I'm going to do it anyway, because if I don't, I'm always going to wonder if I could have done it. And for me, I'd gotten to a point in my life where the curiosity and the desire to see if I could live up to this challenge became greater than the fear that was holding me back. And that was when everything kind of kicked off for me.
Yeah, that's wild. And I guess too, what were some of the things that you, especially at the beginning, were some of the bigger hurdles that you kind of dealt with going into starting it?
Oh gosh, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have an MBA.
Yeah.
I don't have family money. I didn't have venture capital. I grew up on a farm in Montana with an entrepreneurial dad who I watched. He never had big multi-million-dollar businesses, but what he did have was a curiosity and then just no fear in pursuing that curiosity to see where it would lead. And so I grew up watching that, and that was my example. And so, when I started the Gentle Pit, I was working a great corporate job. I was growing and excelling within the company. I had great team members. I could have had a really long and stable career there.
Yeah.
But I also knew that working for somebody else was never going to allow me to live up to my full potential and express all of the talents and capabilities in me. And so that was kind of the impetus to push me towards this big void of the unknown, this entrepreneurial endeavor. But no, I had no background in it. And so I just dove in headfirst. I took classes. I went to seminars. I listened to podcasts and YouTube tutorials. I was just voracious in consuming everything that I could to help me kind of explore and navigate through this until I ended up where I wanted to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, and just to follow up with that too, and take your time to think about it, but you came to all these resources, all these things that you were putting together, that you were investigating and implementing, and mentorship and all these different things, what were some of the things along that journey that will push the needle the most for you?
Honestly, and this might not be what the traditional answer would be, but it was really diving into my own personal development. Because entrepreneurship, whether I think most owners and entrepreneurs want to admit it or not, is a mental game.
Yeah.
You can Google how to set up a website. You can find people to tell you how to source a factory or how to develop your marketing. But what you can't do, unless you're intentional about it, is learn how to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
And so for me, that personal discovery and really diving into, okay, Casey, where are your hangups that are going to prevent you from being a successful owner? Where is fear holding you back, or where are you self-sabotaging?
Yeah.
Because you know what you want, but a lot of times we get in our heads about why we shouldn't have it or couldn't have it. And so for me, it was really being fearless about looking at myself and kind of some of my weaknesses and my strengths and going, okay, how is this going to bleed over into my business? How can I shore up and triage against my weaknesses and then lean into my strengths to really build a business that's going to be ultimately fulfilling and something that's going to make me happy, and not something that I wish, well, I could just be working a corporate job because I've built this business that's not really that fulfilling because of, it came out of a negative place within me. So it was that.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess too, and when you mentioned that, I think part of me is also very curious about, you had said you were working this corporate job and you got this idea, you were going to start it, and you knew you had to do this thing. Was there overlap between the job and this, and for how long, and when did you know it was time to cut the job off and keep this going? Like, what was that whole aspect of it?
For the first 4 years of building my business, I worked a full-time corporate job, managing people, managing huge territories, and built Gentle Pit on the side. And, in the beginning, it was a grind. I would get up at 5 a.m. and I would work in the mornings before I had to start, managing my full-time, because it was important to me to still honor the fact that I was working for somebody else and had an obligation to them. But I also knew that I was more lit up by what I wanted to build. And so it was balancing those two things. So there was a lot of months and years of 15, 18-hour days. But ultimately, it was the passion that kind of got me through. And, I did that for quite a long time. And then, as fortune would have it, the company that I worked for ended up selling. And it kind of was at the right time where my business had grown just enough where I was like, okay, I think I can bridge this gap and take the leap. And it was the push I needed, because as much as my dream was to work full-time in my business, it's still terrifying to walk away from stability, health insurance, 401k and all that and take the leap. So that was really the push I needed to just dive in.
Yeah. And then it was smooth sailing ever since. Never looked back.
I don't know about that, but
it was something. You're on a boat at least.
I was on a boat. I built enough of a life raft to keep me going.
I mean, and talking about the self-improvement side of it too, was that when you were doing the business on the side, I mean, obviously if you're working and doing a business, there's really little room for self-improvement, I'm assuming, in that moment.
You have to be intentional about it. And it's finding those little moments in the day, or it's listening to a podcast that's addressing that, or maybe attending a seminar, or it's being intentional about leaning into some of those things, and then also connecting the dots with your business and going, okay, I'm noticing this pattern in my life, and I can see how it's also showing up in my business. So I'm going to spend some time looking at this, journaling about it, talking about it with people I trust, going to therapy, really having a level of self-awareness and intentionality about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, for others mentors out there, what were some of the bigger resources that you had? Like, I guess if you want to make it more towards the self-improvement that you're talking about, or if you want to make it towards business, whether it was resources or mentorship that you had, what were some of the ones that really stuck out to you as, the most the ones you were most grateful for in your journey?
Yeah. I had a business coach early on. I actually don't know if he's still doing coaching. He has his own businesses,
Wow.
but his name is Dale Partridge. And I had done some sessions with him, and he was really one of the first ones that said, Casey, you are your business. You can't decouple the two, especially as a solo entrepreneur and people starting out. Your business doesn't exist without you. And it really becomes all of your pluses and minuses. And so you would be doing your business a disservice by not really looking at yourself and what you want.
Yeah.
And so from there, that actually scared me because I wanted so badly for my business to be successful and to be something that I could work in full time. And that was motivating for me. And so from there, it really is, they call it a journey, a self-discovery journey for a reason, because you kind of follow this rabbit trail and you go, okay, this is interesting. I learned this about myself and I'm going to go here. There's great personality typing, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, things that help you learn about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses. But then just being intentional about what lights me up? What do I want for my life? What's the end goal? And how can I reverse engineer that in my business?
Yeah.
I'm a huge proponent of therapy, however that looks for you, just as a self-discovery tool. And then there's so many books and resources out there for self-improvement and development. And it just takes some intentionality around it. So.
Well, and I think the other question that everybody's going to have after this is you've been doing this self-improvement, you're building on this.
Yeah.
But then the ultimate question that everybody comes back to is sales. So obviously you were doing that for 4 years. What's it like as a product? Like, how do you start getting those sales? What was your methodology? Did it change at all? How did that kind of operate for you?
So for me and for what I actually see in working with a lot of business owners, the most successful ones have developed businesses and products about something that they're already passionate or interested about. And they know the audience that they're speaking to, and they know the problem that they're solving within that audience. And so for me, that at that time in my life, I had been working my corporate job. I kind of, was looking for something that was going to fulfill me more. I started volunteering at animal rescues in Los Angeles and really just hooked on that. Loved being able to help save animals' lives and be around the dogs and the people in that community. And then I started to get to know the people in that community and I started to become a part of that community and I started to see a gap for certain products that I wanted as somebody in that niche, but that I couldn't find. So I think with sales, the best salespeople and the best marketing vehicle always gives value first before you ask for anything in return, before you ask for people's money or you ask for a sale. And so that's where it started for me. It was, I love this community. I want to help save more lives. How can I give people within this community something that they actually want, that solves a problem, that helps keep the lights on for these rescues and helps them raise money, but also scratches my own itch of providing a product that I want that I can't find and then fulfilling me as a business owner. So that for me is how I always approach sales. It's not the direct hard sell. It's figuring out how I can give value and help. And then in return, the sales always come. Yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, and was it like, what was the trajectory like over the years? Was it kind of like this, oh, I got 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, or was it like is it kind of like you get like 5 people and then suddenly you get 100 people and then you get like 1,000 people? Like, what does it typically look like as you continue onwards with your journey as growing, the business?
For me specifically, with Jen? In the beginning, I started making products that I wanted, that I couldn't find. And I kind of just had a hunch because I couldn't find anything else out there. Like, for example, one of our first products was a dainty little dog head necklace made out of real gold. It was, high quality. And at that point, I had wanted something like that. And when I Googled, this was, 6-7 years ago, all I could find on the market at that time was jewelry that made me look like I was in a biker gang, like wrought iron and spikes especially dealing with bully breed dogs and things like that. And that just was not me. That was not my aesthetic. And I knew so many people within that community that was also not their aesthetic. So I kind of thought, well, I want these products. I have a hunch that other people will too. And so I started making things that I wanted, but then also a balance of, the other people I knew in the community. And the response initially was really good. I mean, it wasn't $0 to $1 million in sales in the first month. Like, that's not necessarily realistic for anybody, but it was a slow and steady growth as I stayed consistent every day, taking little steps towards the bigger sales goals.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, and you are a big proponent of that. I feel like, what's the right mindset in your opinion, for an entrepreneur, getting themselves out there? What mindset would you say entrepreneurs need to have as they start their journey as an entrepreneur?
I think you have to get comfortable with paradox. You have to get comfortable with holding kind of two things in your head at the same time. The first thing is you need to know where you're going. You need to know generally what the end goal is for you in starting your business, which, not to sound like a broken record, comes back to knowing yourself and knowing what turns you on and what lights you up and what makes you most fulfilled. So you kind of have to know, okay, here's my end goal with this business, or what I think it is now on this journey. Otherwise, you're going to end up navigate. It's like going on a road trip, not knowing where you want to end up and not having a map and not having gas in the car. So you kind of have to have the big end goal, the thing that excites you. Like, you have to get excited about this big, almost unreachable thing of where you want to go. But then you have to be okay knowing that you're going to wake up every day for a while taking these little micro steps towards it. And maybe you're not going to see big splashy results that you can spam all over your social media within the first month or 6 months or years or 2 years or 3 years. But eventually you're going to wake up and look back and go, oh my gosh, look at where I started. Here's my end goal, but look at all this progress that I made. So it's a constant mental navigation as an entrepreneur of being uncomfortable, knowing, I still have a long ways to go, but also like, look at the progress I'm making, and I'm going to keep waking up every day and doing at least one thing in my business to get me towards that goal.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, and I think so many people need to know that it's also just like that continuation. You just have to keep pushing one foot in front of the other and not expect it to happen overnight. And I think that's a lot of people's like, especially a lot of entrepreneurs struggle,
Or necessarily want it to happen overnight.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of a soapbox of mine.
I know, right? I know you got something to say about that. But,
I do.
How much time we but I guess too, if there were, some like, key takeaways for entrepreneurs, strategies that you would tell them, like, especially in the product world, things that you can give them, maybe like 1 or 2 or 3, however many you have bouncing around in your brain, some simple strategies that they can take away from this, if they're like at the beginning of their journey or they're on their journey and they've kind of like gotten stuck, like what would you say some strategies are to help them kind of advance themselves forward?
Yeah. Specifically for product-based businesses, but I think this kind of applies to any business, is number one, you got to kind of know your end goal. You got to know where you're going, and you got to know the audience whose problem you're solving.
Yeah.
But then you have to do your market research. You have to know kind of who you're up against, what is already out there, and how your product either iterates on that, improves on that, differentiates from that. So you need to be intentional about really absorbing what's out there already. When I was developing our pack leggings, I went to countless fabric trade shows. I would go to all of the athletic and athleisure apparel stores in the city that I could find. I would touch the fabric. I would look at the fiber blends to know, okay, this is what a poly spandex blend feels like versus 100% cotton blend. And this is how they're priced.
Yeah.
And so it's knowing where the product that you're wanting to develop fits in the overall product and market landscape, so that you can be intentional about your price point and about your branding and marketing and about your messaging to the end consumer about what problem you're solving.
Yeah.
So it would start with that. It would be knowing what's out there inside and out, and then developing a really cool product that is different and that fits your brand.
That's smart. I mean, I think a lot of people are so really like especially with the product, are so obsessed with their own individual thing that like they don't necessarily go out and test the other things or see what the other things are doing, and like, the thing that you're actually dealing with, being as intentional as possible with it. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And again, though, coming back to the paradox, you need to do that research, but then at a certain point, you kind of need to forget it and put blinders on and go all in on your product, because it comes to a certain point, once you have your product developed and you're ready to launch, you can't get distracted by, oh, like, look at what this brand is doing, look at what this, you can't get insecure about that. You have to do your due diligence to develop the best product that you can for the price point. And once you get there, then you are full steam ahead behind your brand, and you're going, and you're not getting distracted by what everybody else is doing in the marketplace.
Yeah, it's almost like you need to use it. You need to use everybody to inform you on the thing, on the thinking that you build upon. But then once you're like on a pathway, you need to focus on your path and not get stray from the path after you get there. So that's awesome. Well, hey, that's great. Anything you want to add, like for the future of what you're planning to do with the Gentle Pit, or things that people might be on the lookout for?
Yeah, just like most career paths in life, entrepreneurship is kind of develops and unfolds. I think for a lot of years I was frantically building the Gentle Pit, and in the last couple years, it's gotten to a place where I'm like, okay, we have a system in place. We know our customer. We have really great products. I brought on a partner this last year, which he has been amazing, and we've been working really well together to continue to build the business and give back money and save dogs' lives. But now, in tandem with running my business, I am pretty passionate about helping other people start their businesses, just because I've kind of been through the school of hard knocks, and if I can help other people navigate the treachery and the road through entrepreneurship, just like I had help in my journey, that's been really fulfilling for me. So it's kind of exploring that right now, as well as continuing to develop new products that our audience wants with the Gentle Pit, and keep growing and keep giving back to rescue.
Oh, I love it. Well, if someone wants to get on that Casey hotline, where can they reach out to you online? And if they're, especially if they're a product business, I mean, come on, the proof's in the pudding right here, So where do they find you, and how do they get in touch with you to get some advice from you, and hope maybe even have you help them on their journey?
Yeah. My personal Instagram is Case Boshae, CASEY, Boshae. And they can always email me at Casey@thegentlepit. And then my website, thegentlepit.com, and our Instagram, The Gentle Pit, is where my business lives.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Casey, for joining me.
Thank you,
It's been
Josh.
a fantastic episode.
Yeah.
And we'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. This episode of Make Marketing Make Sense is brought to you by Comfystone. If your business needs organic social media video content, video ads, or video podcasting, hit up Comfystone at comfystone.com and follow Comfystone on Instagram and TikTok. Until next time, this is Make Marketing Make Sense.